Hi, everybody. My name is Latisha Jones. I'm a playwright and a educator, and one of the reasons why I'm here is because I have a lovely play called The Rescue Trial. The Rescue Trial is actually, for me, the latest in a series of historical plays that I write. That the purpose of them is to really engage people in historical figures. I have some children's plays. One of them is about Ruby Bridges. I have another play that is an imagined conversation between Phyllis Wheatley and Sally Hemings called Defiant Grace. And the play I want to talk to you about right now is a play that I wrote called The Rescue Trial. The Rescue Trial is a play that focuses on the Black anti-slavery community of Boston in 1850s. So I don't know if you know about what happened in the 1850s, but let me give you a quick summary to let you know why this era is so intense. 1850s, clearly slavery is happening, but what happens in 1850 is the Fugitive Slave Law is passed. The Fugitive Slave Law that basically says nowhere is safe. Sure, you could run to the north at one point in time and they couldn't really touch you, but the 1850s Fugitive Slave Law makes the law of the land that not only can slave catchers come and get you, but the police can get you. And not just slave catchers and the police, but they can deputize citizens to help them capture you. This is what they say. This is now the law of the land. And we are here right now in Boston, specifically in the African Meeting House. Now, Boston was a hotbed of abolitionist activity. They were basically like, not happening here. No, you're crazy. We don't do that in Boston. So, because people like to test, they tested this out. We have a man called Shadrach Minkins. He is a waiter. He's waiting tables doing his thing. Slave catchers come to get him. They get him, they take him to the courthouse. They think it will be no problem, but again, this is Boston. The free Black community was already ready to go by the time we got to the courthouse. The Boston Vigilance Committee was already ready to go. By the time he got there, lawyers were already up. They have the lawyers, they have the people. And rumor has it, it's a little hearsay, but basically someone said something like 1, 2, 3, go, ran into the courthouse, grabbed Shadrach Minkins, put him on a horse and buggy. He goes away, lives the rest of his life in Montreal, and the people who were involved come back to Boston and they are arrested, federally indicted. Federally indicted. And one of those people who was federally indicted was a man named Lewis Hayden. And Lewis Hayden, who lived literally several blocks from where I sit right now, his house was known as the Temple of Refuge, a very well-known place in the Underground Railroad. Him and his wife, Harriet, housed countless freedom seekers. And not only that, because sometimes people stayed in Boston, helped people get jobs, talked to them, created a community. And the African Meeting House was a central place for that community development. When he was arrested, eventually, when everything came to trial, there was a mistrial. It was amazing because this community came together. This community was supporting people. And at the end, Lewis Hayden lives an amazing life, as does his wife. And I found out about this story by going on the Black Heritage Trail guided by the rangers of the National Park Service, and I was fascinated by his story. And me as a writer and as a playwright had the story in my heart for years until I said, you know what? People need to know more about this. People need to see it. And so I created this play called The Rescue Trial that is not just about the trial, but it's also about the community that was in Boston. That's about how the women cared for one another and also cared for their families. And the challenging thing I find is, when I say 1850, sometimes it's hard to place for people. They know the Civil War, they know the Revolutionary War, and something, I guess, happened in between. And so one of the things that I did is that one of my main characters in my play is Rosetta Douglass. Rosetta Douglass is the daughter of Frederick Douglass. And while in real life she was about maybe 11 years old when this happened, they do age her up a little bit so that we make her a POV character. So you get also get the chance to see what it's like being a woman in this time, a young woman at this time, particularly in Rosetta's case, a highly educated young Black woman at this time where people are still enslaved. And she's probably one of the most educated women, period, of any race or background. How does she get to shine her light in a time period where they told women that you should be small? And so this story is about her writing for the North Star and also her exploring what does it mean to be an activist and be involved as a woman specifically. So Harriet Hayden is a character in my play, the wife. And what does she do in her house when her husband is gone? She does a lot, spoiler. And so when we think about these type of stories, we think about the fullness of these figures who, yes, they did amazing things. Frederick Douglass did amazing things, but so did his wife, Anna Murray Douglass. Not only Anna Murray Douglass did amazing things, but also all of their children. And then there's so many activists of many different races and backgrounds that we don't know, or that we do know but aren't talked about. So many people, if I mention Wendell Phillips, only a handful people know who that is. The lawyer who they work with, John Hale, Robert Morris. Please look these names up and figure out these are amazing people. And so my job, I feel, as a playwright, as an artist, is to humanize these historical figures, because they can seem so far off in the distance. Oh my gosh, they did this, they did this. How could I? How could, what does that mean? But when I tell you that Anna Murray Douglass, the wife of Frederick Douglass, had an amazing biscuit recipe, when I tell you that she and Sojourner Truth and Harriet Tubman would come to her house, you may be thinking, oh my gosh, so much is going on. But if I think about it as my three aunties who know how to handle things sitting around the table, I know exactly what they're talking about. I understand it. And I want people all over to understand that these are people. These are humans dealing with, both the beauty and the destruction of living amongst others, and how you manage and coordinate that. And I'm so delighted to be a part of Douglass Week and to have this conversation with so many historians, and whether they are people with PhDs or people, who are volunteer docents, they're so passionate about letting others know, I want you to see these people, these humans, so as a person and as a human that you can do the same thing. And so many things that we experience these days are challenging, are confusing, are so intense. It's almost like, how do we handle? How do we deal? And if I tell you that Frederick Douglass had similar questions, if I tell you that Martin Luther King had similar questions, how do I deal with something so big and so intense? Suddenly, the things that we're dealing with, while still a lot, aren't as impossible as I've seen before. And I will leave you with these kind of last two stories. When it comes to the story of Frederick Douglass, we celebrate his birthday on February 14th. The reason why we do that is because his mother, who was enslaved, he didn't see her often, but she traveled 12 miles to see him when she could. And one of his strongest memories of her is her coming with a heart-shaped cake and calling him her little Valentine. With that memory, he decided, okay, I don't know my birthday, but February 14th, Valentine's Day, will be my birthday. Just so happens that that day is a few days off from President Lincoln's birthday. And because those two birthdays are in the same week, Dr. Carter G. Woodson decided that would be Negro History Week. And Negro History Week evolved into Black History Month. So what does that mean? That means that because this enslaved woman loved her child so much that after a long day's work, she would walk 12 miles to at least plant some type of positive memory in her son, we, generations later, have an entire month to show love to each other in our history and our culture. So some people I feel like may not understand, what does winning look like when you're facing something hard, when you're facing oppression, when you're facing all of this. Sometimes the winning is the walking 12 miles to spend a few hours with the person you love the most. And you may not know what the result of that will be. So I love to tell these stories, whether in storytelling fashion or in movies or in plays. I like to tell these stories to humanize this history so we can be stronger as a collective. And then lastly, I want to talk briefly about another play that I wrote. It's a short play, and it imagines a conversation between Sally Hemings and Phyllis Wheatley. Takes place in Paris. When a 15-year-old Sally Hemings is pregnant and is dealing with that reality. Now, I hope she had some friends to talk to, but we don't know for sure. So in my imagined reality, she has a chance to talk to a woman who's a little bit older, a little bit more mature, in Phyllis Wheatley. And in that, we get to see again the humanity. Some people wonder, after she was in Paris, why did she come back to Virginia? Well, if you've ever met a 15-year-old teenager who's pregnant, who's away from their mama, things start to make sense. But what I get to do as a creative is I get to co-create a reality where I want to humanize you. By across hundreds of years, maybe I want to find a way to give you some peace, give you a hug, let you know that you're loved. And we can do that creatively. We can humanize history. We can show our ancestors in many ways that we love them and hopefully be good ancestors and descendants ourselves. And so I, as a playwright and as a creative person, just find it my duty, sounds like a lot of work, my calling to try to have these conversations with people I've never met but have great respect for, and let them know that I see them in a very human way. And I'm so excited to share that with you, with the folks of Douglass Week. If you ever a chance to visit Boston, please come to the African Meeting House. It's so cool. And I hope to share the work that I do with you and the world in the future. See you around.